Michael recognized the policeman who had handcuffed the purse dealer after Michael had hit him with the longest knockdown pitch ever. Put the guy down not too far from where he and Ellie were sitting right now. The other man wore a white shirt and tie, even in the heat, carrying his jacket over his arm. He was smiling at Manny, then nodding, then laughing at something Manny said, then lifting his chin and nodding in Michael's direction. Do you know them? Ellie said. The policeman I do. Officer Crandall is his name. Officer Mark Crandall. I met him the other day. And who's that with him? She was trying to angle her body to get a better look because the policeman had moved now and was blocking her view. An official person, Michael said, knowing he was talking in capital letters. How can you tell? Ellie grinned. Officially, I mean. I just can. Now he saw the official person giving Manny a friendly shove in their direction, the kind the coach gives you when he tells you to go get in the game. Manny jogged toward the outfield while Officer Crandall and his friend sat down on the home team's bench on the first base side of the field. Michael got up now, so did Ellie. When Manny was about 20 yards away, Michael couldn't wait any longer. Who is that? He said. Ellie had moved a few steps closer to home plate, squinting into the sun at the two men. Before Manny could answer, she said, He works for the Bronx Borough President, Mr. Amorosa. I forget his exact job. Manny said, He works in public relations for Mr. Amorosa. He just told me. He stared at Ellie. But how do you know him? Michael thought Ellie seemed nervous all of a sudden, even though he had no idea what she had to be nervous about. I met him one time, she said, with my dad. Anyway, Manny said to Michael, he wants to meet you is all. It turns out, Officer Crandall said something to one of his superiors about what you did with Ramon. That was the thief's name, Ramon. And the superior said something, and it somehow ended up in Mr. Amorosa's office. The other man with Officer Crandall, Mr. Lima, he says they want you and your parents to come down and have your picture taken with Mr. Amorosa. People hear so much about crime in the South Bronx, he said, they want to play up their 12-year-old Crime Stopper. Michael felt himself looking all around Macomb's damp park now, all corners of the green grass, everywhere, except at the two men on the home team's bench. He was never, under any conditions, supposed to talk to any official person without Carlos. The only reason that he had talked to Officer Crandall that day was because he had no choice. He had been afraid that if he ran off when he saw a policeman coming, he would look as guilty as the Ramon guy. What did you tell him? Michael said. Mr. Lima, I mean. You see him laughing before? Manny said. I tried to make a joke of it. I told them they were talking to your agent and that I'd have to go clear it with you first. That's when Mr. Lima told me to go clear it already. Manny turned now, put on his biggest smile, waved at the two men, held up a finger. One more moment, please. From behind them, Michael heard Ellie say, I've got to go. He turned his head and saw her running toward Rupert Place, the same as she had the first day. Wait, he yelled at her back. But she kept running, around the end of the basketball court, up the hill, toward the flow of people heading for the gates at Yankee Stadium. She held up her hand in some kind of wave without breaking stride. Michael looked at her, looked back at Officer Crandall and Mr. Lima, said to Manny, Wait for me at McDonald's. He ran after her. Michael, wait, Manny said. What the heck am I going to tell him? Over his shoulder, glove in his right hand, one ball still in the pocket, chasing after the baseball girl, one who seemed to have secrets of her own. Michael smiled, even as scared as he was. Tell them the truth, he shouted at Manny. Tell them this is the first day of my whole life that I started chasing girls. Only when he looked up the hill, she was gone. Again. There was another policeman right in front of Michael as he came racing up the hill, on this street where he always imagined his baseball world ended and the Yankees began. He wanted to ask the man if he had seen a pretty girl with a baseball glove under her arm. Then he stopped to catch his breath. imagining how a scene like that would play itself out. What was he going to ask this policeman? Had he seen a girl with a baseball glove outside the stadium before a home game? The man would probably look at him and say, "Oh, I've seen about 50. Would you care to narrow it down a little bit?" Michael knew there was no point in even looking for Ellie up here, or asking anybody for help, or trying to explain why this friend of his, a girlfriend, was running away from him in the first place. So he slowed down now and walked right past the policeman who seemed to be guarding the stadium club entrance to the stadium. When he got to the corner of 161st and Rupert, he stopped to look back on the field at McCombs Dam Park, saw Manny in the distance, walking away from the Little League field with Officer Crandall on one side of him and Mr. Lima on the other. Michael could see Manny chattering away, talking with his mouth and his hands at the same time, in a way that always made Michael wonder if the hands were trying to keep up with the mouth, or if it was the other way around. He saw Manny look up at one man, then the other, then saw both men start to laugh. Manny the entertainer, like that guy Cedric the Entertainer on television. It had been such a perfect day, Michael thought to himself. Him and Manny and Ellie Garcia, laughing and playing ball and inventing games and being happy to be on the field and with each other. A perfect summer day when it was as if Michael could hypnotize himself, make himself believe that everything was going to work out right, that the Clippers would make it to Williamsport, that he and Carlos wouldn't be found out before Carlos turned 18, that he and his brother would always be together. Except now, an official person had come to his field, which in the summer was as much his home as 825 Gerard. What was he going to do the next time this Mr. Lima came around? Michael felt himself shiver, even though the heat of the day had carried over into early evening to when the Yankee game was set to begin. They knew where to find him now. It was Carlos's regular night off from Hector's, so he and Michael and Manny were chowing down on all the food Manny and Michael had brought from McDonald's, listening to the Yankee game on the radio. Actually, Michael was doing most of the listening, while Manny caught Carlos up on what had happened at the field. As always, Manny made himself out to be the hero of everything. It was another part of their deal, except on the ball field. Once they got to the ball field, Manny was always content, or so it seemed to Michael, to play the part of sidekick. "They definitely asked you for Michael's last name?" Carlos asked Manny. "I thought about giving them a middle name or something, just to throw them off for now," Manny said, his mouth full of fries. "But if they found out later that I'd lied about something that easy to find out, I figured they'd be asking themselves why I lied about something that easy to find out." "But they didn't ask you for an address?" Carlos said. "Nah," Manny said. He looked at Michael across the table. "You gonna finish your fries?" he said. Michael shook his head. Manny grabbed a handful, said, "I think they were probably about to ask me where, but it was right then that my boy here decided to run after his new sweetie." "I was running away from them," Michael said. "And she is not my sweetie, dorkball." Michael got up and walked over to where the radio sat on the coffee table, wanting to hear better and not wanting to have Manny catch him blushing again. Top of the third for the Orioles, runners on second and third against El Grande. 2 outs. Manny wouldn't let up, of course. "You told me you were running after her, remember?" Manny said. "Shh," Michael said. Then listened as John Sterling, the Yankee announcer, his voice excited, said, "He struck him out!" And El Grande was out of the inning. At least somebody was winning something today.